In this video, we'll begin a series of discussions around tools and activities that you can perform in the improve phase of a DMAIC style project. The specific learning objectives will be to review the key objectives of the improve phase, along with some of the major deliverables that you should expect to see at the end of the improve phase. We'll identify beginning of improve phase roadblocks that teams often encounter. We'll also spend some time exploring end of the phase roles and responsibilities and expectations after the solution implementation plan has been created, and introduce I sometimes call it the missing phase of a DMAIC style project, and that is the implementation after the solution plan has been approved. So I've cleaned up my screen just a little bit, and we've seen this summary sheet before. This is a list of some of the common tools and activities or broad objectives that each one of the phases in a DMAIC style project should produce. And when I get to the beginning of the improve phase, I like to have a quick check-in with my team just to remind them of what the goals and deliverables are. And I'm going to blow up this screen here just a little bit. Our team has completed the analyze phase and walked away with a list of root causes. And in the improve phase, I know this may seem a little bit obvious, but I remind my team that we are now finally at the point where we should be taking a look at solutions. I bring this up only because one of the traps I frequently see when we do team-based problem solving using DMAIC is that for 3 phases now, we have been challenging our team not to come up with solutions, to push those aside and to focus on understanding current state to eventually lead us to these real root causes. And I find that sometimes teams are hesitant to want to speak up about these solutions, and the improve phase is all about that. Solutions are the name of the game, and the final deliverable that we'll expect to see at the end of the improve phase is a solution implementation plan with some options. We want solutions. How do we go about doing it? I'll remind my team that from the end of the analyze phase, we've got a number of root causes that we have identified. What we're trying to do in the improve phase is for each of the root causes, we want to build a suite of possible solutions that might get implemented. Our goal isn't to create a small list of solutions. It's to create first a large list, and then we'll narrow it down. I'm looking for multiple solutions for each of the possible root causes. So if we walk in with, in this example, 3 root causes, it's not unusual for me to see, 10, 15, 20 different possible solutions that we'll try to generate. We try to go broad at first, and then we'll narrow it down to the final suite of best solutions. It's not that when we get to the improve phase, we should have one overarching solution that satisfies all of these root cause needs, but we'll have a suite of solutions. And there's where the biggest trap is, I think, in the improve phase, is that at the beginning of the improve phase, this team has gone through a problem-solving journey of using tools in the define phase for qualitative data collection and analysis, tools in the measure phase for all the quant data analysis. They've gone through rigorous root cause analysis with tools, and by the time they get to the improve phase, they're tired. They're not interested in coming up with a suite of solutions. They just want 1 or 2 solutions to be thrown out because they're getting fatigued. You have to break through from that fatigue factor. There's a new product development thought leader by the name of Samuel Kainer, and I think he did a good job of visualizing this fatigue that sets in at the beginning of the improve phase. It's sometimes called the Kainer model towards idea generation. And the idea is that at the beginning of any type of group solution generation exercise, we need to create some divergent thinking where we're creating a broad list of solutions. This divergent thinking is to try to overcome the brain drain or the fatigue that has happened in all of the problem analysis that's taken place up to this point. So, brainstorming is nice, and I know I'll brainstorm each one of the root causes, but we're going to want some other tools to help us create a broad, large list of solutions. We won't have the time or resources, though, to implement that large list of solutions. So if we come up with a big, broad list of 10, 15, 20, it's not the goal of the team to try to get them all implemented. We'll then, on the back end of this Kainer model approach, we'll do some convergent thinking where we try to sift and winnow to find the best of the best possible solutions. I call it the narrowing. And we've seen this broad to narrow approach used before in a variety of tool techniques in define, measure, and analyze. In order to create that big broad list, though, to begin with, we're going to have to bust through this brain drain or fatigue factor. And one of the tools that I will use to help at least initiate some creative thinking and getting the team to be thinking about solutions right now is I'll list off each one of the root causes. And then I'll remind the team we've got a list of possible solutions that has already been developed earlier in define and measure. When we went and first asked our team at the beginning of the project chartering exercise, what were your possible solutions? And then in the voice of customer interviews, interviewees provided their feedback on what was broken and possible solutions that might correct it. We created a possible solutions document list, and I'll go through those possible solutions. And we don't automatically accept each one of those possible solutions. Remember, the solutions that we're developing in this big, broad list, they are only solutions that are going to attack these root causes. So it's not about creating a big, broad list of solutions for any type of situation. It's only solutions that attack those root causes. I'll go through the possible solutions document and identify solutions that were described earlier that might attack specific root causes. I find that using the possible solutions document as your first technique to create the broad list really engages the team. They see that some of their own personal solutions have made it through all of the rigorous analysis and are now on the list that may be considered for the final implementation plan. It isn't a difficult exercise because those solutions have already been cataloged and recorded, and now we're just comparing them against the root causes. And it does seem to energize the team. But we can't stop there. It's not just looking at the possible solutions document and then going straight to the implementation plan. We'll use some other techniques to help us create the big, broad list. Those other techniques, including things like looking at other lean thinking concepts for solution development and benchmarking and best practices, those are all ways to create the big broad list, and we have separate videos that will be addressing each one of those particular techniques. We'll then take the big broad list and narrow it down using a variety of scoring tools and techniques. We'll take a look at a solution scoring matrix called an IFAT matrix, and we'll de-risk the solutions using a modified technique called Quick FEMA. Again, separate videos on each one of those particular tools. But then the final thing that we create is a solution implementation plan. At the back end of the improve phase, we'll be building a solution implementation plan where we'll have gone from broad to narrow and gotten our best of best solutions. But the solution implementation plan should not just include those proposed solutions because they will need to be vetted. There is always a tollgate review that occurs at the end of the improve phase in which key decision makers, including the project team, meet to discuss these proposed solutions. And some of the things that we'll want to include in that solution implementation plan include things like There's a big list of things that we'll include in for each of the solutions in the solution implementation plan, including things like how long we think it'll take to implement this solution, what the cost now will be, who the affected groups are, the sequencing, like is there any particular order that we need to roll out these solutions, and should it be phased? Are there particular test groups that we should be rolling the solutions out to? Are there other SMEs that are going to need to help with these solutions, especially if they're complex implementations? And are there other resources that we need to pull from the organization to help? The solution implementation plan is, in many ways, your project plan for the solutions. Now that we know what the few best of best solutions are that are going to create a better future state, we want to provide those additional details for decision makers. It's because of this additional information that I sometimes remind teams that there is, in many ways, a missing sixth step associated with the DMAIC. Here's what I mean. So we've seen how when we're doing DMAIC-based problem solving, in the define phase, we start with our problem statement. We begin an exploration of current state. That current state exploration includes data collection, both qualitative and quantitative. And from that, we identify the root causes so that we can build a solution list that attacks those root causes and a suite of tools that come up with it. The final solution list is going to be in our solution implementation plan. In the control phase, we're in future state. The solutions have been implemented, and now we're measuring and monitoring. We're standardizing, and we're passing off the improved future state solution to process owners and closing down the project. But there is a big, important missing piece that's not described in this five-step DMAIC problem solving. If we've got this solution list in the form of an implementation plan, sometimes the solutions that you end up coming up with are large-scale solutions that affect the whole organizations. They could be a whole new ERP system or a whole new customer relationship management database or a whole supply chain inventory management and logistics program. These could be solutions that would take months or in some cases years to implement. The missing step here is implementation. And this implementation will include techniques to implement large scale and techniques for implementing small scale solutions. The large scale solutions, they're going to involve some of the phase-based project management tools that are associated with getting large scale projects done on time and within budget and meeting the needs of important stakeholders. And whole separate curriculums on large scale project management techniques. Small scale solution implementation, this could be modified plan, do, check, act. Small scale solution rollouts could be run as Kaizen events. Small scale solution rollouts could be roll up your sleeves and just do it, where the team is just assigned to work on it. But where I'm going with this is that this implementation, depending upon whether it's large or small, may require other individuals besides just the team. So I remind folks at the beginning of the improve phase, we're creating a list of solutions. The solution should not be limited just to the skills that the team has, because in implementation, we may be bringing in other folks to help us with large scale solution development. So there you have it, kind of a roadmap for the improve phase. A set of tools and techniques that we'll use to create some divergent thinking, a big broad list of solutions that then we narrow down to come up with our best of best. And then the final solutions will be placed in an implementation plan, and we'll have a strategy developed for how those solutions actually get implemented. Follow-up videos will cover specific tools and activities that we use to help get us from beginning of the improve phase to the end and implemented solutions.